This is White Plains Week, the weekly roundup of White Plains, Westchester, and world news. With John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com. Jim Benerofe, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. And me, Peter Katz, formerly with NBC, ABC News, and stations from Boston to Los Angeles. White Plains Week, what's happening, who are the newsmakers, what's in store for the future. The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76, Verizon Fios Channel 45, and on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. White Plains, Westchester, and the world. This is John Bailey, White Plains Week. And good evening, too, to all you obstructionists out there. We know who you are. And welcome back to Jim Benerofe from assignment, and of course Peter Katz, the anchor for all seasons. And right now, Jim, the headlines are yours.
And here are the headlines for the week of January 26th, 2018. County Executive George Latimer meets with Rockland County Executive Ed Day in a show of unity and cooperation. White Plains introduces Burbio, an online calendar app accessible by iPhone that will provide same-day updates of community events, and it's free. Nelson Nygaard, the state consultant on Complete Streets, asks you for input on their January 13th presentation. Nadine Hunt Robinson approaches the 4th anniversary of her being appointed to the Common Council. Council of Neighborhood Associations plans panel of journalists program to discuss the state of the press today in White Plains, New York, USA. New York area is still in the running for Amazon headquarters. County Executive George Latimer announced this week. Mr. Latimer continues his outreach with the 11th annual breakfast for seniors Friday morning at the county center, calling it a senior speak out. No progress reported on moving the Gedney Association FASNY Article 78 forward. Nothing has changed.
Thank you, Jim, and welcome back. What are your impressions after rolling on assignment down in the
deep south,
southern part of the country?
In the Sunshine State,
well,
the Orange Juice State, the Alligator State, the Hurricane State.
It's a more Trumpy area.
Did you go to Mar-a-Lago to the big
no, I
anniversary
unfortunately
party?
did.
He didn't even give you a discount, did he?
No. I think they took my invitation off the list.
You know, we reported on that last week, and at that time, you know, we understood the tickets were $100,000 per couple, but apparently, if you had $250,000 to spend, you could have participated in a roundtable discussion with Donald Trump himself. But of course he didn't attend because the government was shut down, and it would have seemed unseemly for him to leave Washington while the government was shut down to go to a party. Anyway.
In fact,
much of what you hear on certain radio stations down there is Donald can do no wrong.
Really?
It's amazing.
What is the attitude toward Latinos in Florida about Trump?
I didn't really get that much information on that. I don't think, generally speaking, I don't think they like him, but that's, just a...
Keeping a low profile.
Yeah.
And how about the influx of Puerto Rican refugees? Has there been seen anything like that?
No, I think that's more maybe in the Miami area. I don't know if that's in the area where I am.
Yeah, that would seem to be where they primarily go, at least arrive, and then perhaps spread out somewhat. The numbers that we've heard floated around were something like 200,000 people so far migrating from Puerto Rico to Florida, arriving in Miami and then dispersing from there.
Meanwhile, let's go to the White Plains Week Rollo Newsreel March of Time, and this is a shot of George Latimer and his principal staff that journeyed across the Hudson River Thursday to join with Rockland County Executive Ed Day on the right, a kind of meeting that I do not remember ever. County executives trying to find common ground. Peter Katz prepared a report.
You know, John, there is so much partisan bickering as a way of life in this country. What happened yesterday across the river in New City at the Rockland County Executive's office was kind of refreshing.
With other government officials on hand, Westchester County Executive George Latimer, a Democrat, and Rockland County Executive Ed Day, a Republican, met at the Rockland County Office Building in New City on January 25th, discussing bipartisan cooperation.
We're going to look for ways that we can work in harmony to try to keep costs down for the taxpayer.
The fact of the matter is, and people need to hear this, those in government traditionally work very well together. I mean, we found very quickly that we had purchasing, probation. These folks all talk to each other. It's critically important that those at the top, the leaders, make sure that that's cultivated. And at the national level and what's going on up there now on both sides, frankly, they do need to start changing their act. They really do. Nothing's getting done. Nobody's talking. They're yelling at each other. It's not the way things should be done. And if they can't do that, they should think about doing something different. To Albany, we'll say very simply, stop giving us your mandates. If you want to do something, make sure you pay for it. We have way too many mandates here.
And about the promised bus rapid transit system over the new Mario Cuomo Bridge.
We discussed inside the importance of a White Plains and a Tarrytown venue for people that are coming this way, coming from west to east. Joan McDonald, our Director of Operations, happens to be a former Commissioner of the New York State Transportation Department of Transportation, and so she's tasked with interacting with the current leadership of the DOT on these very issues. During my tenure as a state legislator representing part of White Plains with Mayor Roach and so forth, we talked quite a bit about what that physical layout would be. The state is in charge of a lot of the final decisions, but I think what you're going to see is us being very strong advocates because we want a rational system, and we want the rational system so that we can react to it and not just to satisfy the ridership, but also the physical flow of traffic in our municipalities. If we're going to do something in a Tarrytown or in a White Plains, we need to have a rational plan to deal with it.
All that people expect, those who are commuters, they expect to be told what's going to happen and have it happen, not in a different way. They need the truth as to what can be reasonably expected from bus service, timelines, which is the best route. And this is where, this is where the partnership, I believe, comes in handy, because we can talk directly about what we know is going to happen. We understand each other, and with Joan helping out from her own background, we're going to be in very good shape, I think.
Do they consider Rockland and Westchester rivals in trying to attract businesses and employment?
We visited with executives from MasterCard. We've had an initial point of contact with the Regeneron officials, and they both make it a point, and I'm sure the other businesses in Westchester will highlight, that while they may be physically based in one location, their circle of involvement of employees and philanthropy is in all of these counties. So I don't think we're directly in competition in any way, shape, or form. I think, we'd like the businesses to be in the Hudson Valley and not in New Jersey, not in North Carolina. And if we can keep them in this region, I think we both will benefit from it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, the day and a follow-up. The days of myopic thinking when it relates to competition and business development are over, and they're over already because we have the Regional Economic Development Council already taking in plans and proposals from companies that are regional in nature, that may have places in Westchester, Rockland, or Orange. So this is a model that's already in place, and to George's point, we think regionally here because if we bring wealth to the region, we're all going to do well. And one of the discussions we did have was the tolls on the Tappan Zee Bridge, for example. Where are they going to go? Higher tolls help no one. And as I pointed out with a little bit of a laugh, nobody drives from Westchester to Putnam to buy gas. They stay in Westchester. Nobody goes from the Bronx to Queens to buy gas. But people leave Rockland to go to Bergen to buy gas. And there's a reason for that. Government made gas more expensive in Rockland County. My running joke is that you do know that the gas in Rockland is better than in Jersey. And people look at you like, why? It costs more. And they want you so badly in Jersey, they actually run out to pump it themselves. So I mean, this is, it is definitely a regional approach. And I said, if one county is doing well, the neighbors are going to do well too.
That reminds me, I need to stop for gas.
Yes.
I do too, actually.
Right, gas still the fuel of choice.
Now they say that they will be meeting again and again, and this we're going to be doing this on a regular basis, and they want to expand it to bring the county executives from other nearby counties in for this more regional cooperation.
Yeah.
Hope the spirit
regional.
of Glassboro continues. Not referring to the classic meeting with Gorbachev and I think Reagan. Was it?
Johnson, actually.
It was,
Glasnost.
I think was it Khrushchev and Johnson or Gorbachev and Johnson? I don't know.
well,
Or Brezhnev? Who knows? The
That-
memory,
it was
folks,
great.
the memory. Anyway.
Yes, right. The memory goes every once in a while. Tuesday, White Plains became a Burbio city. What is Burbio? It's an online iPhone app that gives you instant access, updated every 5 to 6 hours on community events, City of White Plains events, and meetings.
I suppose by saying Burbio, they're trying to be cute, something about suburban, like Suburbio or something like that. Wasn't there a newspaper in town at one time called Burbio Street?
It could be. That's the idea. It's burb as in town. So it's a townio, right? But, it's very successful. They got 200 people signed up. It's run by a couple of people in New Rochelle, entrepreneurs, and it really actually works. I am a member. It was announced in a news release Tuesday by the city, and it is live now. It also has advertising on it, and is in the communities across the country, and they offer it free to both communities and individuals, and it is something you should look into.
John, the whole world is becoming a cell phone app.
Right. Everybody's looking at this. I mean, nobody looks at the models on Madison Avenue.
So, Jim, if you were still publishing now you're doing Suburban Street now as a website, but if you were doing it, as a newspaper, at this point, do you think you'd be forced really to go the route of apps and websites?
Well, I don't, I actually think that there are some decent hard copy papers out there. I mean, like your paper, the Westchester Business Journal, I think is really excellent. And there's also the White Plains Examiner, which I think is
Careful.
basically. No, I think it's fairly interesting.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of local stuff that I don't see anyplace else. And I still think very local hard copy papers have a place.
I happen to agree with you.
Well, it's one of the big differences now between journalism 15 to 20 years ago and today.
Well, one of the big arguments, is how do you get the millennials to get off the cell phones and off the computers and actually read things like hard
I'll tell
copy
you something
newspapers?
interesting. They did a library study about millennials, and millennials do not like Nook and Kindles and stuff like that. They like hard books.
Interesting. Now, there's actually, while we're on the subject, there is a forum coming up on journalism.
Right. The Council of Neighborhood Associations is trying to put it together for February the 13th. They've invited me, and of course, shamelessly, I accepted forthwith. And so, therefore, that'll keep the crowd down. But at any rate, that is going to be an interesting discussion because hopefully some other reporters will join me as we fight for truth, justice, and the American way better. So that's on February the 13th.
Okay.
And now, remember last week we told you about the Nelson Nygaard presentation at the White Plains Library on January 13th, Complete Street Visions and Possibilities for Transforming Route 119, also known as Terrytown Road. Well, this week it reached out via email to attendees of that meeting, such as me. You can go to WPCNR.com and see this invitation with links which provide you with views of its PowerPoint presentation so you can familiarize yourself and see what they have planned. Now, Jim, this would have interested you had you been able to attend, fly up for it, for example, but we did not know this too far in advance that this was going to happen, and only 17 people attended, 3 officials from Terrytown, Elmsford, and White Plains, and they talked about 1 lane in each direction on Terrytown Road.
Reducing the speed to 20 miles an hour,
Yes.
and other things which, frankly, I found hard to conceive as being a dose of reality. But
Well, it would seem to me, I don't know why they're focusing on Tarrytown Road. I think the place where you could do stuff like that is more likely Central Avenue. And I think they could put a monorail type system down the center of Central Avenue. And
I think they made that decision 5 or 6 years ago when they decided it was too expensive to put a rail link across the new New York Bridge. And it was a terrible decision.
well, part of the issue here is that there's a promise of bus rapid transit across the Tappan Zee Bridge to link Rockland and Orange and Westchester and make it easy to take some kind of mass transit to commute instead of using your car. If you start slowing down things and create choke points at a major
You wind up gagging.
artery
Yes.
accessing White Plains, you're going to discourage people from using your mass transit system, because unless you have a dedicated lane really for buses, it's not going to be bus rapid transit. It may be bus transit, but not so rapid.
And as we learned yesterday, they're
bus
really behind.
rapid transit, not so rapid.
Anyway.
Yes. Well,
Famous
nothing has been done on
advertisement.
bus rapid transit. They
Yeah,
haven't
and-
ordered the buses. They haven't set up the laneage. There's no plan yet.
Well, you heard it. You heard at the top of the show
That's
that,
right.
that this is
They're
a
upset
prime issue for George Latimer, the new Westchester County executive, and Ed Day, the Rockland County executive. So
People should realize that task forces, when set up, don't do tasks. That's the problem with task forces.
well, okay.
That's a blanket generalization, by the way.
There's something going on in town as we're recording this program over at the White Plains Youth Bureau, and the county executive is over there to announce that funds which had been cut by the previous administration for the Invest in Kids program are going to be restored. This affects programs for youth in New Rochelle, Peekskill, White Plains, and the Westchester Jewish Community Center's operations. They have some youth programs. So this is a news event which is unfolding. Unfortunately, we're recording our program now, so we can't be there, but thought you would be interested in knowing about it.
Now, George Latimer announced that we still have the possibility of landing the Amazon headquarters, and we have also learned that the Gedney Association Article 78 suit against the city of White Plains and the French-American School of New York had its day in court back on January 18th and 19th, and it is now progressing slowly, from what I've been told, and they may be filing papers, cross-resolutions, stuff like that, and it may be coming back together in the spring. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is in Davos, and he had an interesting week.
Well, he is, but last night at the deadlines for papers, hard copy papers generally have 9 o'clock p.m. deadlines for their material, and last night at 9, something broke, something big broke. The New York Times and the Washington Post both reported that President Trump ordered White House counsel Don McGahn to fire special counsel Robert Mueller. Now, McGahn refused, saying he would quit if Trump persisted. This happened last June, according to the newspapers. McGahn is still serving as White House special counsel, so Trump obviously had second thoughts about what he was doing. Analysts say this is just one more piece of the puzzle, which when put together spells out obstruction of justice by the president. Chief of Staff John Kelly was briefing reporters in his office at the White House on various issues such as immigration when President Trump walked in, interrupting the briefing. And Trump proceeded to hold a mini news conference, completely upstaging Kelly. It also had the effect of blocking Kelly from saying any more about his own hardline views on immigration, after Trump himself had been flip-flopping and expressing less hardline views than he had a few days earlier, such as in his now infamous S-hole remarks about African nations Haiti and El Salvador. The Trump administration on Monday announced that it was putting into effect tariffs, taxes on solar panels, solar panel components, and large washing machines manufactured abroad and brought into this country. The tariffs begin at 20% and go as high as 50%. That means the prices paid by U.S. consumers will rise, and already one washing machine manufacturer, LG, has announced price hikes. This is the way trade wars are fought, especially when countries are home to manufacturers affected by the tariffs. They counter by placing tariffs on U.S. manufactured goods brought into their countries, and that, of course, hurts sales by U.S. companies, and that results in U.S. factories being shut down and U.S. employees being laid off. After previously blasting the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, as being elitist and not something the U.S. president should waste taxpayer money attending, guess where Donald Trump is, along with dozens of his appointees and staff and some family members? At the elitist financial summit, of course. And he's right at home, and he's being greeted warmly. And some of what happens there is that secretive deals are struck behind closed doors by the very rich and international bankers who are attending. It's noteworthy that many of the Russian bankers are there, including some who figure prominently in the investigations into possible money laundering by President and former members of the Trump inner circle, such as Paul Manafort and son-in-law Jared Kushner. His speech today concentrated on self-aggrandizement and was more like a campaign speech than anything else. Trump did receive warm applause at the end of the speech. President Trump now says he's open to amnesty for the DACA immigrants, saying relief for them can morph, his word, morph, into full U.S. citizenship in 10 to 12 years. If you happen to notice looks of horror on the faces of Trump supporters, white supremacists, and hard-right Republican congressmen, maybe that's why. Breitbart says, the alt-right website, you know Breitbart, they say that he is Amnesty Don. He nicknames people things.
Yes.
Now they are nicknaming him Amnesty Don. Attorney General Jeff Sessions has been interviewed by Special Counsel Robert Mueller. Reports indicate Sessions was under oath, but even if he wasn't, it's still a felony to lie to federal investigators. Trump says he's willing to meet with Mueller to be questioned under oath, but he also says it would be subject to his lawyers having the final say, and guess what they would say? Hard-right Republicans are trying to discredit the FBI and undercut public trust in the agency. It's part of their broader scheme to try to discredit Mueller and the Russia-Trump investigation. Congressman Devin Nunes, who has been working to scuttle his own committee's investigation, used information sent to him by the White House to write what he calls a secret classified memo designed to undercut the FBI and the entire Justice Department, alleging all kinds of political hanky-panky going on. They've created a false fight over whether this memo should be made public, hoping the gullible will give credence to the memo, which contains nothing of value and points to a cover-up and wrongdoing by the FBI and the Department of Justice. This is Trump and Trump supporters undercutting the Trump administration's Department of Justice and FBI. Taylor Wayaneth the Deputy Chief of Staff for the Office of National Drug Control Policy will resign, according to the Washington Post. He apparently was totally unqualified for the job he was given, other than having worked on the Trump campaign. Remember the wall that Trump was going to build, 2,000 miles long, 30 feet high and solar powered? Mexico is going to pay for it. Trump is now demanding $25 billion U.S. taxpayers' dollars for the wall. Vice President Pence posted a picture on Twitter of himself posing with 24 congressional pages. Young people interning to build experience working in the halls of Congress, not too unusual until people started noticing that all of the pages in the picture with Pence were white. Absolutely no diversity in that picture. Michael Steele, the former chairman of the Republican Party, has had it with evangelical Christians who keep making excuses for Donald Trump's obscene comments and dubious behavior, such as affairs with pornographic movie stars while happening to be married. Now, after lecturing everyone else about morality, Steele says, that these far-right evangelical Christians should, in his words, shut up.
Well, what can we say? There's never a dull week in a Trump administration, is there? Never a dull week. Right.
One piece of information that I did pick up when I was down in the Deep South, they are having some difficulty in certain states getting migrant workers to come in and pick crops because they're afraid of being...
People are afraid to come in, afraid
Yeah.
of being rounded up by ICE, afraid of being deported.
And
Yes.
that is going to increase food prices.
So get those oranges while you can, folks. Right. But that is a serious food problem. It's lettuce, all sorts of stuff that we take for granted on the shelves. But this
Of course,
morning,
the Americans that have lost jobs
yeah.
from
Well, perhaps
immigrants,
some of those
they
unemployed
can go out and
white
pick
people
they can
complaining
go out and
about
pick the
migrants
vegetables.
taking their jobs can hit the fields and help out. Now, this morning, Jim and I attended the senior speak out, and we had to leave about 10 o'clock or so, and it was really well attended, 100 people. And
Now, the senior speak out was at the Westchester County Center.
that's right. And Jim, your thoughts on it?
Well, I thought it was really, and I didn't get to the meaty part of the meeting, but they had some legislators there from the county, and I think some state people were there. I'm not sure that anybody was there from the federal government.
What was
Gary
the,
Brown was.
what was the purpose? In one sentence, why a senior speak out?
Seniors speaking about issues.
There's a lot
later
of
in the
issues
morning.
that seniors have about taking care about themselves. I guess it was an assistant attorney general that spoke about telephone scams,
Yes,
the IRS,
very interesting
and
stuff.
how to handle the telephone. And
Don't answer the phone if you don't know the number.
if you think about the phone as a one-way street,
Yeah.
if you make the call, then you can answer questions. If you get a call from somebody, first of all, make sure what they do is the area code and the exchange they make familiar to you. And then
They
the last
spoof.
four.
They
Seems like a
create
neighbor.
what are called spoofed numbers, so that
That's right. That's what
your
they talk
caller ID on your phone makes you think that it's coming from next door,
Right.
or the next town
Well,
over.
the real news is over, ladies and gentlemen. John Bailey, Jim Benerofe, Peter Katz, good night for White Plains Week.
This has been White Plains Week, news and commentary about White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week, produced by White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, and presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76 and Verizon Fios Channel 45. You may view White Plains Week anytime on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. For White Plains Week, This is Peter Katz speaking.